Donald Trump is so desperate to get away from his problems that he's just straight up run away on a state visit to the UK, where everything that he was worried about at home has followed him across the pond. His Epstein scandal, terrible economic numbers, and worst of all, the crimes of this administration are coming along with Trump and being pointed out by UK Prime Minister Kier Starmer. We are going to get into the shocking and important move that Kier Starmer just made and how it is humiliating Donald Trump, as it should. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, after the state dinner last night, Donald Trump and the Prime Minister today held a press conference in which Trump, of course, melted down, and we're going to get into it with this first clip right here.
We have a great process going, and inflation is virtually non-existent. As you know, we're taking in trillions of dollars from tariffs, and they've been so incredible for our country, so incredible. We're keeping our companies happy, we're keeping them solid and sane, and they're very, very thrilled at what's happened. They can't even believe it. And
Oh, of course, the inflation is non-existent, and no one's seeing it, and no one's feeling the increases of prices except for, of course, the tariffs that Donald Trump is about to talk about in this press conference, because of course he is. The tariffs that are actually causing inflation, the tariffs that are effective taxes on working people, as Donald Trump hands out the biggest tax cut to the rich in the history of the United States, because that's what this administration is fundamentally about. It is always an effort to make sure that the rich get richer and Donald Trump can grift off of it. And part of that grift is the fantastical narrative that Trump wants to sell. And he tried to with a new figure of $17 trillion that he's saying is getting invested in America. But even Brian Kilmeade of Fox, that bastard, was skeptical when Trump said this.
Sir, your country was dead 1 year ago, and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and it's true. And we'll have more than $17 trillion invested in our country this year. 17 trillion, which is many, many times what we had last year, and we're only in our just about almost 9th month. It's moving along quickly. It's amazing. I was saying we're in our 3rd month, our 4th month, our 5th month, but we're at it's going to be over $17 trillion. No country has ever had anything like that, even close.
Yeah, this is tape. This is tape. Okay. So he just mentioned overall $17 trillion in total investment since President Trump took over for a second term. The question is, are the pledges going to turn into actual projects?
So you could even hear Brian Kilmeade there at the end say, I'm a little skeptical of Donald Trump's ability to get these supposed investments to turn into actual projects. And we saw this when Donald Trump and Mark Zuckerberg were caught on that hot mic at the White House. Zuckerberg saying, well, I didn't know what figure you wanted me to say that Meta was going to be investing in America, because none of this is real. It's just an opportunity for Donald Trump to try to put on a show, some political theater, and it's what he did talking about his big, ugly bill right here.
Aspect of the bill. It was in I call it the big, beautiful bill, the great, big, beautiful bill. We got so much, the largest bill ever passed in the history of our country. In fact, so big that we really don't have to pass too much anymore. We can just do this for 4 years, implement. You know, I like to implement, because the bills are wonderful, but you have to implement. But
it is funny that Donald Trump is bragging about this legislation, considering that it is so unpopular, so terrible. It's the worst bill in modern American history. It's so bad that Donald Trump and Republicans have quite literally changed the branding, because they don't care that the contents is bullshit, is going to fuck a bunch of people over. No. What they're worried about is the name. It's such classic Trump to focus on the branding above all else, but that is not going to save him. Donald, you are running an administration that is fundamentally hurting everyone who is not in the top 0.001% of Americans. And you're going to pretend that that's not the case by saying, I'm advocating on behalf of the forgotten man. I'm standing up for people and you know, the children, which is just not true. Donald Trump's administration has put more people in pain than any other in history. And it's not just here in America, it's also abroad, where Donald Trump and our tax dollars are supporting a genocide, a starvation of people in Gaza. And it is why this move by Kier Starmer, humiliating Donald Trump and pointing out how complicit he is really blowing up in his face. Starmer to recognize Palestinian state after Trump state visit. Other nations, including France, Australia, and Canada, plan to take the step at next week's UN summit. Kier Starmer will reportedly recognize a Palestinian state over the weekend after Donald Trump concludes his state visit to the UK. The Prime Minister has previously said he plans to recognize Palestinian statehood before the UN General Assembly in New York this month if Israel does not meet a series of conditions to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. High-level meetings at the UN summit involve world leaders begin on the 23rd of September. According to The Times, Starmer has held off on formally announcing the UK will recognize a Palestinian state until after Trump leaves for fear it could dominate a Thursday news conference the two men plan to hold. The Prime Minister has found himself at odds with the U.S. administration over this move, which is opposed to giving official recognition of the state. However, other nations, including France, Australia, and Canada, said they plan to take the same step at the UN gathering. Of course, the United States should recognize a Palestinian state, and of course, every Democrat around the country should be advocating for this. In a moment in which we are talking so much about those who have lost their lives to gun violence, to political violence, kids who have had their lives ruined and changed forever for simply going to school, we must also think about the humanity of children in Gaza. Political violence is being carried out against them. If you want to condemn political violence and show it in your actions, it is not just enough to advocate against the disgusting and illegal ICE raids by Donald Trump, because that is political violence. It's not just enough to say we need common sense, basic regulations to prevent the policy failure that is the epidemic of gun violence in this country. It is not just enough to oppose this administration's illegal strikes in Venezuela. You also have to make sure, you also have to make it clear, you also have to operate with the moral clarity that lets you say, as an elected Democrat, as we all should, that the Palestinian people deserve our humanity, that they deserve to live, period, full stop. This is a genocide that is taking place, funded by our tax dollars. And if we cannot stand up in a clear voice and call it out, how can we trust our leaders to say anything else with that level of moral clarity? This is an incredibly powerful move by Kier Starmer. It is a humiliation of Donald Trump, who has consistently been Netanyahu's bitch, to put it politely. That is the polite way of putting it. And it makes clear that this should be the international standard. This is what Western democracies need to be doing. This is how you approach this moment with the humanity and moral clarity that it deserves. And we know Donald Trump won't, because he doesn't give a shit about anyone. He doesn't give a shit about children. No matter how much the GOP says that it's pro-child or pro-life, it's just not the case. And it's why Donald Trump has ignored those who have been abused, as Robert Garcia called out at the Epstein files right here.
And we know that in his first days in office, Donald Trump pardoned hundreds of his followers who beat, tased, and attacked brave D.C. and U.S. Capitol Police. And right now, since we're talking about crime and corruption in D.C., as we speak, Trump is leading a White House cover-up of the Epstein files. Now, just yesterday, Trump's FBI director falsely claimed that he could not release the files, which we know is false. And let's review the facts. Epstein told the reporter that Trump was his closest friend for 10 years. One survivor also said that Epstein's biggest brag was he was very good friends with Donald Trump. In fact, there was an 8x10 picture framed of Trump on his desk. We know the two are very close. Just last week, our committee released the birthday note that Trump personally wrote to Epstein. It's right here. The note said, by the way, and I'll read it, "May every day be another wonderful secret." That's a disgusting message to send to a sex trafficker. Now, the cover-up of this note might be just as bad as the crime, since we're talking about crime in Washington, D.C. today. Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit to punish the Wall Street Journal for reporting on the birthday book, which he claimed didn't exist. Now, of course, we've verified that to the world. Now, experts have looked at this. Of course, this is Donald Trump's signature. It certainly looks like the signature to me. At the same time, his administration is cutting deals with a criminal, Ghislaine Maxwell. We know who she is. Who exactly? She's a monster who participated in crimes against up to over possibly 1,000 women. Now, Trump and our Attorney General have not turned over the full Epstein files to our committee, despite a bipartisan subpoena signed by our chairman and this committee. If we want to get tough on crime, if we want to talk about crime in D.C., we need to stand up to where the crime and corruption is happening, and that is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and hold Donald Trump accountable for his record and his actions. It's time for the House majority and Republicans to stand up for the Constitution and take on the biggest crime happening in this country. It's time to release the Epstein files. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
This is the most hypocritical administration in history. Donald Trump claims that he cares about truth and justice and the rule of law. It's always been fucking bullshit. Let's be real. It's always been bullshit. And we know that. Donald Trump is now trying to claim that he cares about his buddy Charlie Kirk, even though he wouldn't show up to his funeral because he was playing golf. And it's not even that it was at 11 o'clock and Donald Trump had a conflicting tee time. He literally just didn't want to leave his golf club, by the way, which we are dumping millions and millions of dollars into every day because this is the biggest grift in the history of the presidency. But on all of that, last night I did not have an opportunity because I was caught up in some other work, and I apologize for not being on this right away, but to talk about what happened at Jimmy Kimmel. They want us silenced. They want us silenced. And I am allowed to use that broader they, which Republicans always lean on, because what we are describing is accurate. There is a systematic effort by the right to suppress dissent and to suppress any opinion, any worldview, any mere difference in who you are and who you love. They want to shut that down. They deny the existence of trans people. They deny them their humanity. Do you think that's not cancel culture? What else could that be? What is happening to Jimmy Kimmel is a test run for Donald Trump and the rest of his authoritarian project, and we should all be very scared of the reaction that anyone who isn't outraged by this has. We saw just the other day, after Pam Bondi announced that she would be cracking down on what she inaccurately described as hate speech, we saw a huge reaction from the right wing. Right? We saw Tucker Carlson, we saw Candace Owens, we saw Megyn Kelly say, this is not right. And do you know why? Because they want to be able to discriminate. It's not because they thought that, oh, well, we need to protect the constitutionality of speech. No. It's because that lane is how they're bigots, right? So this is a really great test. If they actually care about free speech, how they respond to Jimmy Kimmel. Can I give you a little hint, though? They don't give a fuck. They're not going to change their behavior. They're not going to say anything different because they don't really care. So let's stop treating them like honest brokers. Let's just call them out. We are certainly going to be doing so on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And as I've been saying for a couple of days now, if you want something to feel good about, I had a great interview with Wes Moore. It was an absolute blast. I hope you check it out. Keep on fighting. We won't let them silence us. And until next time, I will see you soon.